Throughout the Hunger Games original trilogy, Katniss feels torn between Peeta and Gale. There really was never a love triangle, so to speak, but she was definitely feeling societal pressure from all directions to choose one of these two men. Both boys have feelings for Katniss, and in the first book and the third book, we get their respective perspective on how they fell in love with her. In the Hunger Games, on page 300, Peeta opens up about when he started having feelings for Katniss. They're in the cave, and Katniss says, "You said at the interview that you'd had a crush on me for forever. When did forever start?" And he says, "Oh, let's see. I guess the first day of school. We were 5. You had on a red plaid dress, and your hair, it was in 2 braids instead of 1. My father pointed you out when we were waiting to line up." I first of all love that he is able to tell her so much about that day. It is so clear in his mind. He knows what she was wearing, how her hair was styled, and exactly how old they were. His father goes on to point out, "Hey, did you see that girl over there? I was in love with her mother, but she chose a coal miner over me." And he says, "Dad, a coal miner over you?" Because a baker would have more finances and be able to provide more for the family, albeit no one was well off in District 12, but he was maybe the more financially smart choice when you were setting up a lifestyle. Peeta's father says, "Yeah, she chose the coal miner because when he sings, even the birds stop to listen." Katniss says that's true, and that's when she starts to realize that this isn't a made-up story, because when my father sang, the birds did listen. So he goes on to say, "That day in music assembly, the teacher asked who knew the Valley song. Your hand shot right up in the air. She stood you up on a stool and had you sing it for us, and I swear, every bird outside the windows fell silent." She says, "Oh, please." And he says, "No, it happened. And right when your song ended, I knew, just like your mother, I was a goner." That is so beautiful. So in Mockingjay, Katniss asks Gale, "When did I become so special to you? When they carted me off to the Capitol?" And he says, "No, it was about 6 months before that." That's strike 1 for me. You can't say that she was always special. He says, "It was right after New Year's. We were in the hob eating some slop of greasy says, and Darius was teasing you about trading a rabbit for one of his kisses. And I realized that I minded." Suzanne Collins is so brilliant about how she draws a clear juxtaposition between these two men and their descriptions of how they fell in love with Katniss. Peeta is very clear about his intent. He is so good with his words and able to express his feelings. He can remember the color of her dress, the way her hair was done, and exactly what occurred on the day that he fell in love with her. And then he goes on to use words like, "I was a goner." He's very firm and steadfast in his feelings. Gale, on the other hand, describes the situation very shortly, very briefly. He does not put a lot of emotion into the conversation. He actually says that they were eating some slop of greasy says. It's not to say that Gale loves her less, but it's a different type of love, and I don't think it's as powerful or impactful. He can't specifically say what the weather was, what she was wearing, or what the food he was eating. And he goes on to say that he minds. I minded. Not that I was a goner, not that I knew right then and there, but that I minded. He paints it more as a jealousy thing and a possessive thing. Katniss is the one that actually has to fill in readers on the rest of the story. She says that it was a bitter cold day and they had been hunting. There was a heavy snow that had driven them back to town. The hob was crowded and they were eating a soup made from the stock of the bones of a wild dog that they had shot earlier in the week.